The alarm rings before the sun has fully risen. A tired hand reaches out, not to greet the day, but to silence the sound that already feels like a command. Eyes half open, the first instinct is to grab the phone. Notifications light up the screen like small explosions. Emails from work sent overnight. Messages demanding attention. Breaking news that carries the weight of the world into a bedroom that once felt safe. Before even standing up, the body is already tense, the mind already racing. In that single moment, the day begins not with peace, but with a battlefield. Coffee brews in the kitchen, but even its familiar smell cannot erase the pressure. There is a meeting in less than an hour, a report unfinished, and a commute that promises traffic. For millions, this is not an unusual morning. It is the daily script. Stress does not arrive as one loud crash, but as a constant hum, a steady tightening around the chest, a whisper that never stops. Many people live in this hum, so long they no longer hear it, yet it shapes their breath, their sleep, their sense of self. The heart beats faster, not because of joy or excitement, but because the body believes it must be ready to fight or flee. And this is only the beginning of the day. The children need breakfast, and the parents must rush to prepare them while their own minds are still glued to work. The traffic outside roars with impatience. Horns echo like reminders that everyone is late, everyone is rushing, everyone is stuck in the same restless current. Even inside an office, the rushing continues. Notifications pop up on computer screens, the same way they did on the phone an hour earlier, only now with more urgency. Messages carry tones of subtle pressure. Can you finish this today? Did you see my email? This needs to be done before the deadline. Every request feels like a small weight, and soon the pile grows heavy. In this environment, silence itself feels unnatural, as though a lack of noise would expose something fragile. Lunch breaks are short, often spent in front of another glowing screen. The meal is eaten quickly, sometimes barely tasted, as if food is only fuel to keep the machine running. And in the evening, the commute repeats the morning in reverse. A line of cars filled with people who have given their best energy away and are now too exhausted to enjoy what remains of the day. At home, there are bills on the table, a pile of laundry that never seems to shrink, and the thought of tomorrow already pressing forward. Stress is not just an occasional visitor in modern life. It is the air people breathe. What makes it more painful is that it often feels invisible. When asked, "How are you?" the common answer is, "I'm fine," or "I'm busy." But underneath those words, there is a fatigue that lingers. Some people feel guilty for admitting they are overwhelmed, as if not being able to handle constant pressure means they are weak. Others wear stress like a badge of honor, proof that they are hardworking, valuable, irreplaceable. Yet beneath both responses lies the same truth. The body and mind are stretched too thin. The price is high. Sleep is shallow. Tempers are short. Relationships strain under the weight of unspoken exhaustion. Parents snap at children, not because they lack love, but because they have nothing left to give. Partners misunderstand each other because both are too tired to listen deeply. And individuals, in the quiet of night, often stare at the ceiling and wonder, is this what life is supposed to be? It is not only the workplace or the home. Even places meant for rest are invaded. Vacations are filled with emails checked secretly under the table, or projects carried in laptops, because the mind cannot imagine letting go. Weekends vanish into chores, errands, and the preparation for the next cycle. The body cries for stillness, but the schedule refuses. The culture itself celebrates speed, efficiency, and productivity, as though being busy is equal to being worthy. In such a culture, slowing down feels dangerous, even shameful. And so the cycle continues, a wheel that turns endlessly, leaving little space for breath. This stress is not abstract. It is deeply human. It shows up as headaches, as heart palpitations, as constant fatigue. It shows up as anxiety that makes the chest tight, as irritability that damages relationships, as forgetfulness that steals confidence. For some, it shows up as a deep sense of emptiness, the silent realization that years have passed at a blur of tasks, but the heart has not been nourished. What makes it cruel is that many people believe this is simply how life must be. They look around and see everyone else running, everyone else pushing through the same exhaustion, and they conclude, this is normal. But normal does not always mean healthy. A city can be filled with noise, pollution, and chaos, and still be called normal, yet it does not mean it brings peace. In the same way, a society built on endless rushing can make stress feel inevitable, but that does not make it natural. Human beings are not machines. The heart was not designed to beat at the rhythm of notifications. The breath was not designed to be shallow all day long. Life was not meant to be a constant race without a finish line. And yet, here we are, trying to live as if exhaustion is strength and silence is weakness. When the night comes, the pattern repeats. The phone rests by the bed, glowing faintly with the promise of tomorrow's demands. Sleep arrives, but lightly, broken by the buzz of a message or the restless churn of thoughts. Dreams are filled not with wonder, but with echoes of unfinished tasks. And the next morning, the alarm rings again, and the cycle restarts. This is the reality of endless stress, the silent storm that sweeps across modern lives. It is the shadow that follows us from morning to night, the invisible chain that binds even the most successful people. And it raises a quiet but powerful question. If we are living so fast, working so hard, and striving so constantly, why do we still feel so empty inside? In the middle of this endless cycle of pressure, there comes a simple question, soft but insistent. Must life be this way? Is there another rhythm, one not built on rushing and exhaustion, but on calm awareness? The answer begins not with a grand philosophy, but with something so small and immediate, it is often overlooked: a single breath. Imagine pausing for just one moment before answering the phone, before sending the email, before stepping into the car. Imagine noticing the coolness of air entering your nostrils, the warmth as it leaves. Nothing changes in the world outside. The traffic is still there. The deadlines still wait. But in that one conscious breath, the storm loosens its grip. This is the heart of mindfulness. It is not about escaping life, but about returning to it. The Buddha taught that the mind, left unchecked, will run into the past and race into the future, dragging the body along in exhaustion. But by anchoring attention in the present moment, even for a few breaths, a person steps out of the prison of stress. Instead of being carried like a leaf in a rushing river, they begin to feel the ground beneath their feet. Consider the way most people eat lunch at work. The food is placed in front of them, and in minutes it is gone, swallowed while eyes stare at a glowing screen. Hunger disappears, but there is no memory of taste, no sense of nourishment. Now imagine a different way. Before lifting the fork, pause. Look at the food. Notice its colors, the steam rising, the fragrance. Take one slow bite and really taste it. Feel the texture, the flavor, the miracle that this simple meal is here, created by sun and rain and countless hands. In that moment, eating is no longer a chore, but an act of presence. Stress loosens because the mind is no longer in tomorrow's meeting or yesterday's problem. It is here, now. The beauty of this practice is that it requires nothing new, no special tool or retreat. Life itself becomes the retreat. Washing dishes becomes a meditation on warmth and water. Walking from the car to the office becomes a meditation on steps and balance. Breathing while standing in line at the grocery store becomes a reminder that peace is always available. Each act, when done with awareness, interrupts the cycle of rushing and replaces it with calm. Many resist at first. They think, I do not have time for this. My schedule is too full. But mindfulness is not about adding another task. It is about transforming the tasks already there. Instead of living through them half awake, one lives them fully. The miracle is not that stress disappears overnight, but that stress loses its power to dominate. When awareness shines, the chains loosen. There is an image often used in Buddhist teaching, a glass of muddy water. If the glass is shaken constantly, the water remains cloudy. But if the glass is set down and left undisturbed, slowly the particles settle and the water becomes clear. The human mind is like that glass. Stress shakes it every moment, leaving thoughts jumbled and emotions confused. But if one allows the mind to rest, even for a few breaths, clarity naturally appears. There is no need to force it. Stillness itself does the work. This clarity does not only bring peace, it changes choices. A person who pauses before reacting speaks more kindly, listens more deeply, and sees options that were invisible in the rush. Asterisk over time. This transforms relationships, work, and even health. Science now confirms what ancient wisdom knew. Mindful breathing reduces blood pressure, strengthens the immune system, and calms the nervous system. But beyond science, it restores dignity to life. It teaches that humans are not meant to be machines running endlessly, but beings capable of wonder. Imagine again the morning alarm. Instead of reaching for the phone immediately, take 3 breaths before touching anything. Feel the body lying in bed, the rise and fall of the chest. Whisper silently, "I am alive. I have a new day." The emails are still there, but they no longer define the morning. The day begins with awareness, not anxiety. Or consider the drive through traffic. Instead of gripping the wheel with impatience, notice the hands holding it. Notice the breath moving in and out. See the sky, the trees, the small details usually missed. In this way, even traffic becomes part of the path, not an enemy. Some may wonder, does this mean giving up ambition, slowing down until nothing gets done? Not at all. Mindfulness does not weaken efficiency. It strengthens it. A calm mind finishes work with focus, while a scattered mind wastes energy on worry. A present mind listens fully in meetings, while a distracted one misses the point. Paradoxically, slowing down for a moment often allows everything else to flow more smoothly. The Buddha called this the middle way, not the extreme of frantic striving, not the extreme of lazy withdrawal, but a balanced path where action and stillness dance together. For those drowning in stress, this balance feels like breathing fresh air after years in a closed room. Yet balance is not a theory. It is a practice. It begins with small commitments. Perhaps 1 breath before answering the phone. Perhaps 1 mindful step walking to the kitchen. Perhaps 1 meal a day eaten in silence, tasting fully. Over time, these seeds grow. The hum of stress loses volume. The mind discovers space where before there was only pressure. And in that space, joy naturally arises. Not the joy of achievement or possession, but the simple joy of being alive, awake, and present. Some obstacles will appear. The mind will resist, rushing back into old habits. That is natural. The practice is not about perfection, but about returning. Each time the mind wanders, notice it, smile gently, and return to the breath. Like training a puppy, patience and kindness are required. No scolding, no harshness, only persistence. Gradually, the puppy learns. Gradually, the mind learns. With this practice, stress becomes not an enemy to fight, but a teacher. Each moment of tension is a reminder to return, to breathe, to awaken. In this way, even the hardest days contain opportunities for freedom. Life continues, but the relationship to life changes. Instead of being dragged by the current, one learns to swim with it, or simply float, resting in awareness. The miracle is not outside. A miracle is the capacity to be present, here and now. And in that presence, a person discovers strength they did not know they had, a peace that was hidden beneath the noise all along. Stress does not vanish, but it no longer rules. The cycle is broken, and a new rhythm begins, the rhythm of awareness, the rhythm of life itself. On a Saturday night in a crowded city, the streets glow with neon signs and music drifts from open doors. Yet inside a small apartment, a young man scrolls through his phone in silence. His screen is filled with names, hundreds of contacts, thousands of followers, but his room is empty. He scrolls not to connect, but to distract, swiping past pictures of other people laughing, traveling, celebrating, all while his own heart feels heavy. He tells himself he is not alone, that with one tap he could message someone, but when he finally does, the response is short, distracted, or delayed. The truth is clear. Connection is not the same as presence. In this age of constant contact, loneliness has become its own epidemic. It hides behind busy schedules and glowing screens, disguised as independence or productivity. Yet deep down, there is a quiet ache, a longing to be seen, heard, and understood. This longing is not new. It is part of being human. But in modern life, it often feels sharper. In earlier times, families lived close. Neighbors knew each other, and communities gathered in shared spaces. Today, many live surrounded by strangers, in tall buildings where doors remain closed and names are forgotten. People move often for jobs, chasing opportunities, but leaving behind roots. Friendships stretch across distances, carried only by the fragile thread of messages that can vanish with a dead battery or a lost signal. In America, studies show that people report having fewer close friends than in past generations. Many admit they have no one to turn to in a crisis. Elderly parents sit in nursing homes, visited only on holidays. Teenagers hide behind headphones, surrounded by classmates, but feeling invisible. Adults attend social events where conversations skim the surface, but never reach the heart. Loneliness wears many masks: the silence of an empty house, the noise of a crowded bar where no one truly listens, the smile that hides an aching chest. What makes it heavier is the illusion of connection. Social media promises closeness, yet often delivers comparison. A person posts a picture of their dinner, hoping for comments, likes, tiny signals that they exist in the minds of others. But after the notifications fade, the hunger returns. The heart does not crave validation. It craves presence. And presence cannot be given through a screen. It must be shared in real time, with real attention. Think of the elderly woman who lives on the edge of town. Her children are grown, her husband has passed, and her days are filled with silence. The television plays for company, but the voices are strangers. Once in a while, a phone call arrives, but it is short, squeezed between meetings. She smiles during the call, but when it ends, the house feels even quieter. Or think of the teenager in high school, surrounded by peers who laugh in groups. She posts a picture online, carefully chosen, filtered, crafted. She receives comments, emojis, small bursts of recognition. Yet at lunch, she sits alone, scrolling again, wondering why the attention online does not translate into friendship in real life. The loneliness is not just physical, it is emotional. It comes from the absence of deep listening, from conversations that never go beyond the surface. Many people talk, but few truly hear. Many look, but few truly see. Without this depth, even relationships can feel lonely. Partners share a bed, but scroll on separate devices. Friends meet for dinner, but spend the evening half absorbed in their phones. Parents and children sit in the same room, but live in different worlds, one digital, one longing. Loneliness whispers in these spaces, not because people are absent, but because presence is absent. In this landscape, many begin to doubt their worth. They wonder if they are boring, if they are unlovable, if they are destined to live unseen. They compare their messy reality with the polished images of others and feel smaller each time. This spiral of disconnection feeds anxiety and depression, making the heart heavy and the world appear dim. It is not simply a private problem. It is a cultural one. Modern life encourages independence, achievement, and mobility, but often at the cost of community. Success is measured by personal accomplishments, not by shared bonds. And so, people run faster, achieve more, but return at night to rooms that echo. The pain of loneliness is more than emotional. It affects the body. Studies show it increases the risk of illness, weakens the immune system, and shortens life expectancy. The heart, both physically and spiritually, cannot thrive in isolation. Just as plants wither without sunlight, humans wither without connection. The irony is that people know this. They long for it. They watch movies about deep friendships, listen to songs about love, dream of families that understand them. Yet when the opportunity comes to reach out, fear often holds them back. Fear of rejection, fear of vulnerability, fear of not being enough. And so, they stay silent, scrolling through screens instead of opening their hearts. This silence grows until it becomes a wall, and behind that wall, loneliness sits waiting. Imagine a man returning from work, walking into a dark apartment. He drops his keys on the table, microwaves a meal, and eats it standing. He turns on the television for noise, but his mind drifts. He remembers when he had friends nearby, when laughter filled the evenings, but now distance and busyness have stretched those ties thin. He does not know how to rebuild them. He does not know where to begin. The loneliness becomes a habit, a heavy cloak he wears without realizing it. In these stories, whether the elderly woman, the teenager, or the man, the thread is the same, the longing to be connected, to be known. It is a longing that money cannot satisfy, that achievements cannot replace. It is a hunger deeper than hunger for food, because it is the hunger of the soul. And so, in this quiet ache, the question arises, is there a way to bridge the distance, to heal the disconnection? Is there a path to presence in a world of distraction? The question lingers, waiting for an answer, waiting for the door to open to something deeper. In the stillness of loneliness, there is a doorway waiting to be opened. It does not swing wide through grand events or sudden miracles, but through small gestures of presence, through the simple act of turning one's attention fully toward another being. In Buddhist teaching, this is compassion, the art of seeing and understanding. Compassion is not pity, not a distant kindness handed down from a place of superiority. It is the recognition that the suffering of another is also your suffering, that the line between me and you is far thinner than it seems. When the Buddha spoke of interbeing, he used the image of a vast net, Indra's net, in which every jewel reflects every other jewel endlessly. Each action, each word, each smile ripples outward through the web of life. In this vision, loneliness is not an individual problem, but a symptom of forgetting our place in the net. We believe ourselves to be isolated jewels, separate and fragile, when in truth we are reflections of one another, held in connection, whether we see it or not. To heal loneliness, we must begin by remembering. Imagine sitting with a friend, not to talk, but to listen. In most conversations, people wait for their turn to speak, rehearsing words in their minds, half distracted by their own stories. But true listening is different. It is emptying the mind, like setting down a heavy bag, so that another person's words have room to land. When you listen this way, the speaker feels seen, feels safe, feels less alone. And the listener, too, feels nourished, because the act of opening space for another becomes an act of connection for both. This is what Thich Nhat Hanh called deep listening. It is medicine for a lonely world. Compassion is not only for others. It must begin within. Loneliness often grows when we believe we are unworthy of love, when we measure ourselves against images of perfection and find ourselves lacking. But Buddhist wisdom teaches that every being already contains seeds of compassion, seeds of love. These seeds may be buried under pain, but they are never gone. To water them, we begin with ourselves. Instead of scrolling late at night and feeling the ache of comparison, we can place a hand gently on the heart and breathe. We can whisper to ourselves, I am here. I am alive. I deserve kindness. This may feel awkward at first, but with practice, it softens the walls of loneliness. For when we learn to be present with ourselves, we become more able to be present with others. Picture the elderly woman in her quiet house. She sits in silence, feeling forgotten. But one day, instead of waiting for the phone to ring, she decides to reach out. She calls a neighbor, not to ask for anything, but to ask how they are doing. The neighbor is surprised, then grateful. They talk for 10 minutes, sharing small stories about the weather, the garden, the aches of the day. It is not dramatic, but afterward, both feel lighter. Connection begins with one gesture, and that gesture ripples outward just as one candle lights another. Or picture the teenager sitting alone at lunch. She feels invisible, scrolling through her phone. One day, she remembers the teaching of Indra's net, that her presence matters, that her smile can reflect light into others. She gathers courage, sits at another table, and simply says hello. The conversation is awkward at first, but slowly it grows. A small bond is formed, fragile but real. She goes home that day, not with hundreds of likes on a post, but with one moment of genuine connection, and that makes all the difference. Compassion also requires slowing down. In a culture of speed, relationships are often sacrificed to efficiency. Parent hurries through bedtime, reading a story with one eye on emails. A friend rushes through a visit, already planning the next task. But connection blooms in unhurried presence. When a parent sets aside the phone and listens fully to a child's small story about a drawing or a dream, that child feels loved in a way that no gift can replace. When a friend lingers over coffee, not checking the time, both hearts feel nourished. These moments of presence are like drops of water to thirsty roots. They may seem small, but they grow forests of belonging. In Buddhist practice, even the simplest acts become rituals of connection. When monks eat together, they bow before lifting a spoon, acknowledging the countless beings who made the meal possible. This awareness transforms eating from a private act into a communal one. In the same way, we can pause before meals at home, silently thanking the farmers, the rain, the sun, and the hands that prepared the food. This gratitude links us back into the web of life, reminding us we are never alone. For those who feel cut off, the path forward is not to chase more contacts, more followers, more numbers. It is to deepen the connections already available. Perhaps it is calling one friend and truly listening. Perhaps it is visiting a neighbor. Perhaps it is sitting quietly with a loved one. No words needed, just presence. Each act becomes a thread woven back into the net. Some may say, but I have no one. There is no friend to call, no neighbor to visit. For them, Buddhist wisdom offers this. Connection is not only with humans. The trees outside, the birds in the sky, the breath in the body, all are companions. Walking slowly in a park, noticing the breeze, hearing the song of a bird, feeling the ground beneath the feet, this too is connection. It may not speak in words, but it speaks in presence. And presence is the antidote to loneliness. Over time, as the heart learns to connect with life itself, the courage to connect with people grows naturally. Compassion, once awakened, flows outward. It shows in the way we speak, in the patience of our listening, in the softness of our gaze. Others feel it, and they are drawn to it. In this way, healing loneliness is not about waiting for someone else to notice us. It is about becoming the presence that notices others. And in that act, the circle completes. By helping others feel less alone, we ourselves feel less alone. Imagine the man who returns each night to his dark apartment. One evening, instead of turning on the television, he walks outside and sits on a bench. A neighbor passes, and he smiles. At first, the neighbor only nods, but the next night, they stop to talk. Slowly, a pattern begins, a shared moment in the evening light. What was once silence becomes conversation, and what was once isolation becomes community. None of this erases the challenges of modern life. Screens will still glow, schedules will still press, families will still be scattered by distance. But the practice of compassion creates islands of connection within the sea of distraction. Each island strengthens the heart, reminding us that no one truly stands alone. The Buddha taught that all things arise in dependence on conditions. Loneliness arises when the conditions of disconnection are strong. But by planting seeds of compassion, gratitude, and presence, we change the conditions. Slowly, loneliness fades, replaced by belonging. This path is not quick, but it is steady. And with each small step, the ache of isolation transforms into the warmth of connection. So when loneliness comes, as it will, do not see it as a curse. See it as a call, a signal that the heart is longing to return to the web of life. Answer the call with presence. Answer it with compassion. Answer it with the courage to reach out, to listen, to be. In this way, what once felt like emptiness becomes a doorway into love. It begins with the numbers. A stack of bills waiting on the kitchen table, the glow of a credit card balance displayed on a phone screen, the quiet calculation of how to stretch one paycheck across too many expenses. For many, this is not an occasional challenge, but a constant weight. In America, debt is woven into daily life. Student loans that linger for decades, mortgages that bind families to 30 years of payments, credit card balances that grow faster than they shrink. The numbers never sleep, and they whisper late into the night. A man lies awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying the same thought again and again. Will I ever get ahead? His heart races not because of an immediate danger, but because of an invisible one, the sense that no matter how hard he works, the ground beneath him is always shifting. Stress over money is not just about survival. It is about identity. In a culture that equates success with wealth, people measure themselves not by who they are, but by what they own. The house in the right neighborhood, the car in the driveway, the vacations posted on social media, these become signs of worth. To lack them feels like failure, even when basic needs are met. This constant comparison feeds desire. The moment one item is purchased, another appears. The phone that seemed perfect last year now feels slow compared to the newest model. The clothes that once felt stylish are replaced by new trends. Advertisements promise happiness with every purchase, yet the happiness fades quickly, replaced by a new hunger. It is like drinking salt water. The more you consume, the thirstier you become. Asterisk desire stretches beyond possessions. It attaches to status, recognition, the sense of being somebody. A young woman graduates with honors, gets a good job, and earns more money than she once dreamed possible. Yet within months, she feels the same emptiness she felt before. The title on her business card shines, but her heart feels restless. She begins chasing promotions, thinking the next step will bring peace, but each achievement only opens another horizon of longing. The cycle continues. Earn more, spend more, want more. Even relationships are touched by this hunger. Couples argue about money more than almost any other subject. One partner saves while the other spends, both carrying silent fears about security. Families take on debt to project an image of success, only to collapse under the pressure later. Children watch and learn, growing up in a culture where enough is a word rarely spoken. The irony is sharp. The shelves in stores are full, the online market's endless, yet people feel empty. A teenager scrolls through online catalogs, not because she needs anything, but because the act of browsing soothes her restlessness for a moment. A middle-aged man buys a new car, feels proud for a week, then notices his neighbor's newer model and begins to feel small again. The problem is not the object itself, but the belief that the object can fill the space inside. That space is not material. It is spiritual. Yet the culture teaches otherwise. From childhood, people are told that happiness comes from more toys, more grades, more achievements. As adults, the toys change shape, houses, salaries, vacations, but the message is the same. And so desire becomes a chain, binding even the most successful. Some chains are visible, like the heavy weight of debt. Others are invisible, like the constant anxiety that whispers, "It's not enough. You're not enough." These chains do not break easily because they are reinforced by the society itself. Advertisements flood every space, promising joy in exchange for dollars. Success stories are told not about kindness or wisdom, but about wealth and fame. Even spiritual language is sometimes twisted, promising abundance as if peace of mind were just another commodity. In such a world, to step off the treadmill feels almost impossible. Everyone else is running, everyone else is striving, and to pause seems dangerous, like falling behind in a race. Yet the race has no finish line. The man who lies awake at night, worrying about his mortgage, is not weak. He is human, caught in a system designed to keep him running. The woman who buys clothes she cannot afford is not shallow. She is searching for belonging in a culture that sells identity. The teenager who longs for the latest phone is not foolish. She is responding to messages crafted by experts in desire. The chains of money and craving are heavy because they are collective. They wrap around entire communities, not just individuals. But within each person, the burden feels intensely personal. Shame grows. People hide their debts, their struggles, their fears, believing everyone else is managing better. They smile at work, laugh at parties, but inside they carry a constant weight. And in the quiet moments, when the bills are spread on the table or the paycheck disappears within days, the truth presses in. This cycle is unsustainable. Yet even as exhaustion sets in, many feel trapped. They ask themselves, what choice do I have? To provide for a family, to keep a roof overhead, to pursue security, these are not luxuries. They are responsibilities. And so the chains tighten and the longing grows. In this space of tension, of exhaustion, of hunger without satisfaction, a question arises. If more money, more possessions, and more status do not bring lasting peace, then where is peace to be found? If the chains of desire cannot be broken by feeding them, how can they be broken at all? The question lingers like a lantern in the dark, flickering but steady, waiting for a deeper answer. The night is quiet, but the mind is loud. Thoughts of bills and debts swirl like restless winds, and no matter how much calculating is done, peace does not come. It is in moments like this that a shift of perspective can feel like water to a thirsty traveler. The Buddha spoke often of impermanence, the truth that everything changes. Money changes. Jobs change. Even the body and breath change with each passing moment. To recognize impermanence is not to deny responsibility, but to release the illusion of permanence that feeds fear. When we cling to money as if it will guarantee safety forever, we suffer twice. Once when we struggle to get it, and again when it inevitably slips away. But when we see that money, like everything else, is a temporary tool, we begin to loosen our grip. Imagine holding water in your hands. If you clutch it tightly, it slips through your fingers. If you hold it gently, it rests in your palms. Money is like that water. Clinging tightly creates stress and obsession. Holding it lightly allows it to serve its purpose without owning your heart. This is the wisdom of contentment, the power of knowing enough. In many teachings, the Buddha compared desire to fire, a fire that consumes endlessly, always needing more fuel. Left unchecked, it destroys peace. But fire can also give warmth when contained with wisdom. To desire food to live, shelter to rest, clothes to protect, that is natural. To desire endlessly without end, that is the fire of craving. The difference lies not in the object, but in the mind. A person may own little, but feel rich in gratitude, while another may own much, but feel empty inside. True wealth is not measured in possessions, but in freedom from craving. Consider the man lying awake at night, worrying about his mortgage. One evening, instead of spiraling into fear, he sits quietly and breathes. He remembers impermanence. This debt will not last forever. His struggles will shift with time. He cannot control every outcome, but he can choose his response in this moment. He chooses not to feed the fire of fear, but to water the seed of peace. Slowly, his breath steadies and his heart feels lighter, even though the numbers have not changed. This is the miracle of perspective. Or think of the woman chasing promotions. She believes the next step will finally satisfy her, yet each success leaves her hungrier. One day, she hears the teaching of knowing enough. She pauses and asks herself, what in my life is already enough? She thinks of her family, her health, her friendships. She feels gratitude rise like sunlight. For the first time, the endless ladder loses its power over her. She still works, but without desperation. Her worth is no longer tied to a title, and in that freedom, she discovers joy. Gratitude is a key that unlocks the chains of desire. To wake in the morning and notice the breath, the warmth of a bed, the presence of loved ones, these are treasures often ignored. When we train the mind to see them, the hunger for more softens. Gratitude is not passive. It transforms the heart. It teaches us that abundance is already here, if only we open our eyes. Buddhist practice also invites generosity. When we give, even a little, we loosen the grip of greed. A person who donates a meal, shares time, or offers a kind word experiences wealth in a deeper sense. Generosity reminds us that value does not lie in accumulation, but in connection. The paradox is that the more we give, the less we feel lacking. Generosity feeds the soul in ways consumption never can. Picture the teenager longing for the latest phone. She feels trapped in comparison, always behind. One day, instead of buying something new, she decides to help at a community kitchen. She serves meals, sees faces brighten, hears laughter. At the end of the day, she feels a fullness inside, a joy no purchase has ever given her. She still wants the phone, but its power has weakened. She has discovered another kind of wealth, one that cannot be taken away. Contentment, gratitude, and generosity are not abstract ideas. They are daily practices. To pause before buying and ask, do I truly need this? To write down 3 things each evening to be thankful for. To share time, energy, or kindness with someone in need. Each small act builds freedom, like links falling from a chain. Over time, the pressure of money and desire loosens. It does not mean poverty disappears or responsibilities vanish. It means the heart is no longer enslaved. Even in debt, one can breathe with peace. Even in simple living, one can feel abundant. The Buddha told a story of a man who carried a heavy raft across the river. Once he reached the other side, he continued to carry the raft on his back. Exhausted, he complained of the burden. But the Buddha said, "Why not leave it behind? It has served its purpose. In the same way, money, possessions, and desire can serve their purpose. But when carried beyond their use, they become burdens. Wisdom is knowing when to set them down. In modern life, setting them down may mean choosing a smaller home to reduce stress, or declining extra hours of work to spend time with family, or resisting the urge to compare one's life with images online. These choices may seem small, but they are revolutionary in a culture built on endless striving. They declare that life is not measured by accumulation, but by peace of mind. Slowly, the chains of money and desire weaken. The heart begins to rest in a new kind of wealth, the wealth of simplicity, the wealth of presence, the wealth of freedom. The man with the mortgage finds calm in his breath. The woman chasing promotions finds gratitude in her family. The teenager finds joy in giving. None of them have solved every financial problem, but each has discovered something deeper. The truth that happiness does not wait on the next purchase, the next promotion, the next possession. Happiness is here, in this moment, available to anyone willing to let go of the fire of craving and hold life gently, like water in open hands. Asterisk, it begins quietly, with small words spoken in irritation. A sigh, a raised eyebrow, a tone that sharpens more than intended. At first, these moments seem harmless, just the friction of daily life. But like drops of water wearing down stone, they accumulate. In the home where love once bloomed, silence begins to grow. Not the comfortable silence of two people at ease, but the heavy silence of distance. A husband sits at the dinner table scrolling through his phone, while his wife cleans the kitchen, both speaking little. They are in the same room, but worlds apart. Later, when they finally talk, the words come out sharp. What began as a small misunderstanding about chores turns into a battle of who gives more, who sacrifices more, who feels unseen. The children watch quietly, their eyes wide, sensing the storm even when they do not understand the words. Across the country, another couple argues about money. Bills pile up, and the stress spills into every corner of their relationship. She feels he does not plan for the future. He feels she does not trust him. The arguments repeat, like a song stuck on loop, until the sound of their voices becomes more about winning than about understanding. They both long for peace, yet they cannot find the path back. In another home, a teenager slams the door after shouting at her parents. They had only asked about her grades, but she felt accused, judged, misunderstood. She retreats into her room, headphones on, drowning in music to block the noise of disappointment. The parents sit on the couch, exhausted, wondering how the closeness they once had slipped away. These scenes are not rare. They are repeated in countless homes, in countless ways. Relationships, whether between partners, parents and children, friends, or colleagues, carry the deepest joys and the deepest pains of human life. When they flourish, they give warmth and meaning. When they fracture, they create storms inside the heart. The pain of relationships is unique because it cuts close to identity. We can shrug off insults from strangers, but when hurt comes from those we love, it pierces deeply. A harsh word from a spouse echoes for days. A cold glance from a parent lingers in the memory of a child for years. The very closeness that makes love sweet also makes conflict bitter. Modern life adds pressure. Work consumes time, leaving little energy for patience at home. Phones and screens distract, pulling attention away from the people sitting beside us. Stress from money, health, or society leaks into conversations, turning small irritations into explosive fights. Many enter relationships with dreams of happiness, but find themselves tangled in disappointment. Some stay together in silence, living side by side but emotionally apart. Others separate, carrying the wounds with them into new chapters. The storms are not only between partners. Friendships break when misunderstandings fester, when one feels neglected or betrayed. Siblings grow apart over old grievances. Parents and children lose touch when words of love are replaced by criticism or indifference. Loneliness, which once felt like being physically alone, now appears even in company. A woman sits beside her husband of 20 years, feeling invisible. A young man laughs with friends at a bar, but wonders if any of them would truly be there in his time of need. Beneath the storm lies longing, the longing to be seen, heard, and loved. People fight not only over money, chores, or decisions, but over a deeper hunger, the hunger for understanding. When that hunger is not met, frustration turns to anger, and anger turns to blame. Words become weapons, and wounds deepen. The tragedy is that often both sides feel the same pain, yet neither can express it gently. They build walls instead of bridges, walls that grow higher with each conflict until only silence remains. Some storms end in separation. A family divides, and the echoes ripple outward. Children move between two homes, carrying questions in their hearts about love and security. Friends stop calling, and the absence feels like a missing limb. The pain of broken relationships lingers long after the final word is spoken, because it is not just the loss of a person, but the loss of trust, the loss of shared history, the loss of a dream. In such moments, the heart feels heavy. Questions swirl. Why does love turn into conflict? Why do we hurt those we care for most? Is lasting harmony even possible? These questions are not signs of weakness. They are signs of humanity. To love is to risk hurt. To open the heart is to expose it to storms. And yet, even knowing this, people continue to seek love, because beneath the storms, the longing remains. Love is as essential as breath. The storm of relationships is painful, not because love is wrong, but because the way we grasp and cling to love often leads to suffering. In the heat of conflict, this truth is hard to see. The storm feels overwhelming, the pain unbearable. But somewhere, beneath the thunder, a quieter path waits to be discovered. A path that does not deny the storm, but teaches how to walk through it with wisdom. For now, though, we stand in the storm itself. The shouting, the slammed doors, the broken trust. The ache of distance between people who once felt close. The weight of words that cannot be taken back. This is the pain of relationships, the storm that sweeps through homes and hearts alike. And in the center of that storm, the question lingers. Is there another way to love? The storm of relationships can feel endless, but even storms pass when the conditions change. The Buddha taught the Four Noble Truths, beginning with the simple acknowledgement that suffering is real. Conflict in love, in family, in friendship, it is part of this human path. But he also taught that suffering has causes, and those causes can be understood. When we understand them, the possibility of peace opens. In relationships, the root causes often come from the same places: craving, anger, and ignorance. Craving makes us want the other person to fulfill all our needs, to behave exactly as we imagine, to be the constant source of our happiness. When they cannot, disappointment grows. Anger follows when we feel threatened, when pride is wounded, when our pain has no outlet but sharp words. And ignorance means we fail to see clearly our own role in the conflict, the true feelings of the other, or the impermanent nature of emotions. To heal, we begin not by denying these forces, but by shining light on them. Imagine a husband and wife arguing late into the night. The husband feels unappreciated. The wife feels unheard. Both raise their voices, convinced the other does not care. But underneath the words, both long for the same thing: recognition of their effort, acknowledgement of their love. If for one moment, each could pause, breathe, and look beyond the anger, they might see the common ground beneath. That pause, that breath, is the seed of understanding. This is where mindfulness enters the heart of relationships. To practice mindfulness is to notice anger rising before it explodes, to recognize hurt before it hardens. When a wave of irritation comes, instead of releasing it as harsh words, one can breathe and whisper silently, "Anger is here." Just naming it creates distance, like stepping out of a storm long enough to open an umbrella. This pause does not erase conflict, but it softens its edge. Another practice is deep listening, a jewel of Buddhist wisdom. To listen deeply means to give another person the gift of full attention, without judgment, without planning a reply. Many conflicts escalate because both sides talk but neither side truly hears. Deep listening is like offering water to a thirsty traveler. When one person feels heard, their anger often melts. Their heart opens and real conversation can begin. It is not easy. It requires patience, humility, and the willingness to set aside one's own story for a moment. But it is transformative. Imagine the parents sitting with their teenage daughter after a fight. Instead of lecturing, they listen. They do not interrupt. They let her pour out her feelings, even if the words are messy or unfair. Slowly, she softens. She feels that her pain is acknowledged, that her voice matters. Trust begins to return, and with it, the possibility of healing. Alongside deep listening comes loving speech. The Buddha encouraged speech that is truthful, gentle, and helpful. In relationships, words can wound for years, but they can also heal. Saying, "I feel hurt when this happens," is different from saying, "You never care." The first opens space for understanding. The second builds walls of blame. Loving speech is not about avoiding honesty. It is about delivering honesty with kindness. It is the difference between pointing a finger and holding out a hand. Forgiveness is another doorway. Many hold on to old wounds like stones in a backpack, carrying them for years. The weight grows and every new conflict feels heavier. Forgiveness does not mean forgetting or approving harmful behavior. It means choosing not to be bound forever by the past. It means allowing the possibility of renewal. Sometimes forgiveness is given to another, and sometimes it must be given to ourselves. For often in relationships, we punish ourselves for mistakes, replaying them endlessly. But if we can learn to forgive, we create space for new beginnings. Generosity, too, is essential. Not just generosity of money or gifts, but generosity of time, attention, and patience. A small act of care, a cup of tea made without being asked, a note of encouragement, a smile offered in the middle of a busy day can shift the entire atmosphere of a home. Love is not maintained by grand gestures alone, but by daily offerings of kindness. In Buddhist practice, metta meditation, loving kindness meditation, helps cultivate this spirit. One sits quietly and repeats phrases like, "May I be happy," "May I be safe," "May I be peaceful," and extends the phrases to loved ones. "May you be happy," "May you be safe," "May you be peaceful." Over time, even difficult relationships can be softened by this practice, because it trains the heart to see the humanity beneath the conflict. Imagine the woman who feels distant from her husband. She sits quietly each morning and sends him silent wishes for peace. At first, nothing changes outwardly. But inside, her tone softens, her patience grows. One evening, when he makes a small effort, she notices and thanks him sincerely. That moment, though small, begins to shift the dynamic. The storm does not end in one day, but slowly the clouds part. The Buddha also spoke of impermanence in emotions. Anger rises, but it also fades. Hurt feels permanent in the moment, but it too shifts with time. Remembering this truth helps prevent despair. In the middle of a fight, one can remind oneself, this feeling will pass. Holding that perspective prevents the storm from defining the whole relationship. Sometimes, though, despite effort, relationships still break. When trust cannot be rebuilt, when harm is too deep, separation comes. Even here, Buddhist wisdom offers guidance: to part with compassion rather than hatred, to wish the other well, even if the paths diverge. In doing so, the wounds of separation heal more gently, and the heart does not carry bitterness into the future. In all these practices, mindfulness, deep listening, loving speech, forgiveness, generosity, and loving kindness, the common thread is awareness. Awareness transforms automatic reactions into conscious responses. It turns storms into lessons, conflicts into opportunities for growth. Relationships may still face challenges, but within those challenges, seeds of compassion can grow. Picture the couple at the dinner table, once silent and distant. One evening, instead of scrolling through his phone, the husband looks up and asks his wife how her day was, then listens without interruption. She feels seen. She thanks him. The silence is broken, not by a grand gesture, but by presence. Or the teenager and her parents. After weeks of tension, one evening they sit together and practice a moment of gratitude, each sharing one thing they appreciate about the others. It feels awkward at first, but then warmth arises. The storm is not gone, but it is quieter. Love feels possible again. This is the power of Buddhist wisdom in relationships. It does not promise a life without storms. It promises the tools to navigate them with grace. Love becomes less about possession, more about understanding. Less about demanding, more about offering. Less about clinging, more about flowing together in awareness. The storm is still there, but in the center, a calm heart can stand, steady and open. The need to control begins early. A child arranges toys in neat rows, and when someone moves them, she cries as though her world has collapsed. Years later, as adults, we do the same with our lives, only the toys are bigger. Careers, relationships, finances, health. We want everything in its place, predictable and secure. When life obeys, we feel relief. When it does not, we feel fear. Control becomes our armor against uncertainty, yet life is never fully in our hands. In America, this struggle shows itself everywhere. A father hovers anxiously over his teenage son's future, planning college applications years in advance, believing that if he charts every detail, success is guaranteed. A woman tracks every calorie she eats, every pound she weighs, terrified that a slip will undo her progress. A man refreshes the stock market app dozens of times a day, riding waves of anxiety as numbers rise and fall. These are not unusual behaviors. They are everyday attempts to control an uncontrollable world. Beneath them lies a quiet panic. What if things go wrong? This fear creeps into even the simplest moments. Parents worry when children walk to school alone. Employees fear a single mistake could cost them their jobs. People check the locks twice, 3 times before leaving the house, as if certainty could be nailed shut. The constant vigilance drains energy, leaving the body tense, the mind restless. Nights become battles with racing thoughts. What if I lose my job? What if I get sick? What if someone I love leaves me? The questions circle endlessly, never answered, never silenced. Control, in truth, is an illusion, but it is a seductive one. The culture feeds it with slogans: take charge of your destiny, be the master of your fate. Productivity systems, financial strategies, self-improvement guides all promise mastery over chaos. For a while, they bring comfort, like building walls against a storm. But eventually, the storm breaks through. A sudden illness cancels plans. A natural disaster erases savings. A loved one chooses a path we never wanted. In those moments, the truth is unavoidable. We cannot control everything. Yet instead of accepting this, many double down, trying harder, gripping tighter. It is like holding sand in the hand. The tighter the fist, the faster it slips away. This relentless need for control creates suffering. Relationships strain under its weight. A husband tries to manage every detail of his wife's day, believing he is helping, but she feels suffocated. A mother dictates her daughter's choices, thinking she is protecting her, but the daughter feels imprisoned. Even friendships fracture when one person insists things be done their way. Control breeds resistance, and resistance breeds conflict. At the personal level, the cost is even higher. Anxiety disorders rise as people feel trapped by the pressure to keep life perfectly arranged. Panic attacks strike when small disruptions feel like catastrophic failures. Depression follows when the gap between expectation and reality grows too wide. The harder people try to hold on, the more powerless they feel. And yet, beneath the fear, there is another truth. Life itself has never been fully controllable. Seasons change without our permission. Bodies age despite our protests. Relationships evolve beyond our plans. The illusion of control blinds us to this reality, but life continues to remind us through every surprise, every loss, every change. Picture the businessman who builds his company carefully over decades, only to see an economic downturn erase it in months. Or the woman who plans a perfect wedding, only to have rain pour down all day. Or the family who works tirelessly to protect a loved one, only to face illness they cannot cure. These moments are painful, but they also reveal something profound. Our control is limited, always has been, always will be. For many, this truth feels terrifying. To accept it seems like surrender, like giving up. But perhaps the real question is this: what if letting go of control is not defeat, but freedom? Before that freedom can be discovered, the pain must be seen clearly. The illusion of control is not simply a mental error. It is a burden. It keeps shoulders tight, brows furrowed, hearts restless. It robs joy from the present moment because the mind is always scanning for threats, planning for disasters. Even in times of peace, the body remains on alert. A mother sits by her child's bed, listening for every breath, unable to sleep. A worker sits in a meeting, rehearsing responses before anyone speaks, unable to listen. A student studies late into the night, terrified of failure, unable to feel curiosity. Life becomes a cage built from fear of uncertainty. This cage is invisible, but its bars are strong. Many do not even know they live inside it until exhaustion overwhelms them. They wake one morning, realize years have passed in anxious striving, and wonder why happiness still feels so far away. The truth is, happiness cannot coexist with constant fear. Love cannot flourish under constant control. Peace cannot survive in the shadow of relentless vigilance. And so the storm of anxiety continues, fueled by the illusion of control, until one day something shifts. A person realizes that the very effort to hold everything together is the source of their suffering. They see that the tighter they grip, the more life resists. They sense, faintly, that another way must exist. And in that small opening, a question emerges, quiet but persistent. If control is an illusion, what would it mean to let go? The moment a person begins to ask, what would it mean to let go? The tightness in their chest already softens. The Buddha often compared life to a river. The current moves on its own, carrying leaves, stones, fish, and fallen branches. No matter how strong a swimmer may be, they cannot stop the river. They can fight against it, exhausting themselves, or they can learn to float, to move with its flow. In the same way, human beings cannot stop change. We cannot prevent aging. We cannot control every choice our loved ones make. We cannot dictate the turns of fortune. But we can choose how we meet the flow. This is the heart of equanimity, a calm acceptance that life will rise and fall, bring joy and sorrow, gain and loss. Equanimity is not indifference. It does not mean ignoring pain or pretending not to care. It means caring deeply without clinging, loving fully without trying to possess, working diligently without demanding certainty. Imagine holding a butterfly. If you squeeze too tightly, you crush it. If you open your palm, the butterfly may rest for a while, perhaps even return, but it is free. Love, like the butterfly, flourishes in freedom. Control suffocates it. Acceptance nourishes it. In daily life, this practice begins with awareness of the body and breath. When anxiety surges, when the mind races to control outcomes, pause. Feel the breath. Notice the rise and fall of the chest. Whisper gently, "I am here. This moment is enough." Asterisk. By anchoring in the present, the grip of fear loosens. The future remains uncertain, but the present is real, and in the present, peace is possible. Consider the father who worries endlessly about his son's future. One evening, instead of lecturing, he sits quietly beside his child, watching him draw. For the first time in weeks, he simply observes without trying to shape the outcome. He notices the creativity, the concentration, the small furrow of the brow. A warmth rises in his chest. He realizes that his son is already becoming, already unfolding in his own way. The father cannot control every step, but he can accompany with love. That realization lightens the burden. Or imagine the woman obsessed with monitoring her body, terrified of losing control. One morning, she practices mindful walking. She steps slowly, feeling the ground under her feet. She breathes deeply, noticing the air filling her lungs. For those few moments, she is not managing or judging. She is simply alive, present in her body. And in that presence, she tastes freedom from fear. Buddhist teachings also remind us of non-self, the insight that the self we try so hard to defend is not solid or permanent. The I who demands control is a collection of ever-changing elements: body, feelings, perceptions, thoughts. When we see that even the self is fluid, the urge to control everything for its sake weakens. If the self is not a fixed fortress, then perhaps it does not need to be so heavily guarded. Letting go is not passivity. It does not mean refusing to act, refusing to plan. It means acting wisely without clinging to the outcome. The farmer plants seeds, waters them, protects them from weeds. But he cannot control the rain, the sun, or the seasons. His work matters, but so does his acceptance. In the same way, we work, we love, we plan, but we release the illusion that outcomes are fully ours. This balance brings freedom. Many fear that if they stop controlling, life will collapse. Yet often the opposite is true. When parents loosen their grip, children flourish. When leaders trust their teams, creativity blossoms. When friends stop trying to control each other, closeness deepens. Letting go is not losing. It is creating space for growth. To cultivate equanimity, the Buddha advised reflecting on the natural pairs of life: gain and loss, praise and blame, fame and disrepute, pleasure and pain. These are called the 8 worldly winds. They blow on everyone, shifting without warning. To attach too strongly to any wind is to be carried away. But when we see them for what they are, temporary conditions, we remain steady. Picture a tree in the wind. Its branches sway, its leaves flutter, but its roots hold firm. Equanimity is those roots. With them, we bend, but do not break. Practical exercises help plant these roots. When faced with uncertainty, pause and breathe 3 times before acting. When fear of loss arises, name it gently. Fear is here. When outcomes slip from your control, remind yourself, this too is impermanent. Over time, these practices carve new pathways in the mind. The habit of gripping is replaced by the habit of releasing. the cage of control opens into space. Forgiveness also plays a role in letting go. Much of our need to control comes from old wounds. We fear being hurt again, so we try to script every moment. But when we forgive ourselves, others, even life itself, we stop clinging to the past. The grip loosens and the present opens. Imagine the businessman who lost his company in an economic downturn. For months he rages, blaming himself, blaming the world. But one evening, he sits in meditation and whispers, "I forgive." Tears fall. Slowly, the bitterness eases. He cannot change the past, but he can release its hold. In that release, the future becomes possible again. The practice of letting go is not one great leap. It is 1,000 small steps. Each time we release a thought, a fear, a demand, we create space for peace. Each time we choose presence over control, we water the seed of freedom. Over months and years, those seeds grow into equanimity, a calm strength that can face storms without collapsing. The storm of anxiety still comes, but the heart no longer fears it. The river still flows, but we have learned to float. Letting go does not mean losing everything. It means discovering that we never needed to hold so tightly in the first place. Life supports us more than we realize. Breath supports us. The earth beneath our feet supports us. The kindness of others, seen and unseen, supports us. When we release our grip, we fall not into chaos, but into connection. The Buddha said, "Peace comes from within. Do not seek it without." When we stop demanding control over what lies beyond us, we finally discover the peace that was waiting inside us all along. On paper, everything looks perfect. The resume shines with achievements. The house is large enough for comfort. The family photos are framed with smiles, and the calendar is full of activities. Yet when the lights go out at night, a quiet voice inside asks, "Is this all?" It is a question that echoes in many hearts, though few speak it aloud. For some, it arises in midlife, when the pursuit of career has delivered titles but not fulfillment. For others, it comes even earlier, when young adults step into the world and discover that success feels strangely hollow. The American dream promises happiness through hard work, possessions, and status. But once the dream is achieved, many realize something is missing. They feel like actors who have performed every line in the script but still do not understand the play. The emptiness shows up in subtle ways. A man drives his luxury car home, parks it in the garage, and sits for a moment before going inside. The car is new, the house is beautiful, but he feels no joy. Instead, a dull ache fills his chest. He wonders why the life he built feels like someone else's story. A woman scrolls through social media, posting pictures of vacations, dinners, and parties. The likes pour in, yet the moment the screen darkens, so does her mood. She feels unseen, unknown, despite the hundreds of digital affirmations. A college student, bright and ambitious, achieves high grades and secures internships, but late at night he lies awake, staring at the ceiling, whispering, "What's the point?" These questions are not about failure. They are about meaning. Success without meaning feels like climbing a ladder, only to find it leaning against the wrong wall. The climb itself is exhausting, and the view from the top offers no peace. In this emptiness, anxiety often grows. People fear that if they admit their lack of fulfillment, they will seem ungrateful. After all, they have more than many others: jobs, families, security. But gratitude and emptiness can coexist. One can appreciate blessings, yet still feel something essential is missing. This paradox creates guilt, deepening the silence. The culture rarely makes space for such conversations. Instead, it urges people to keep moving, to buy more, achieve more, distract themselves from the ache. Work harder, entertain yourself, Chase experiences anything to avoid sitting with the emptiness. But the more people chase, the larger the void feels. It is not simply boredom. It is spiritual hunger. This hunger shows up in restless searching. Some turn to substances, numbing the ache with alcohol, drugs, or compulsive habits. Others drown themselves in work, hoping busyness will disguise the void. Still others chase relationships, believing another person can fill the emptiness. Yet none of these bring lasting peace, because they are answers to the wrong question. The true question is not, how can I fill the void? But what is the void trying to teach me? Picture a woman who has achieved everything she once wanted: a stable job, a comfortable home, children who are thriving. One day, while folding laundry, she is suddenly struck by an overwhelming sense of futility. She asks herself, is my life only a cycle of tasks? Is there no deeper purpose? She feels both frightened and relieved, for the question itself awakens something long asleep. Or think of the man nearing retirement. He has worked diligently, saved carefully, and built a reputation for reliability. Yet as he steps away from his career, he realizes he does not know who he is without it. The days stretch long, and he feels unmoored, like a ship cut loose from its anchor. The search for meaning is not limited to any age. Teenagers feel it as they face the pressure of shaping futures they cannot yet understand. Parents feel it as they pour themselves into raising children, only to ask later who they are beyond that role. Elders feel it as they look back on decades, questioning whether their lives mattered. The ache is universal. It is the human spirit whispering for more, not more possessions, not more accomplishments, but more depth, more truth, more connection to something larger than the self. This search often leads people into spiritual questions, though they may not use the word spiritual. They ask, why am I here? What is the purpose of life? What happens when it ends? These are not abstract questions for philosophers. They are urgent, intimate, pressing on the heart during sleepless nights. Yet answers are not easy. Many fear the silence that comes when no clear response appears. Others cling to rigid beliefs, hoping certainty will quiet the ache. But certainty without experience does not heal. The emptiness is asking not for dogma, but for a living truth, something felt, something real. In this restless hunger, many reach a breaking point. They realize that chasing the next goal, the next purchase, the next distraction, will not satisfy. They sense that the meaning they seek cannot be bought or borrowed. It must be discovered within. But how? Where to begin? These questions rise like lanterns in the dark, fragile yet luminous. They do not demand quick answers. They invite a deeper journey, a journey that begins not with adding more, but with stopping, listening, and turning inward. For in the silence beneath the ache, something sacred is waiting to be found. The search for meaning does not end in despair. In fact, the very ache of emptiness can become the doorway to awakening. The Buddha taught that suffering, when understood, becomes the teacher. The feeling of something is missing is not a flaw. It is an invitation to look deeper, beyond the surface layers of achievement and possession. The emptiness is not a void to be feared, but an open space in which truth can be discovered. In the silence of that space, we can begin to see clearly. Meaning is not given by society. It is discovered in how we live, moment by moment. One of the Buddha's greatest gifts to the world is the Eightfold Path, a map for living with purpose and clarity. It does not demand blind belief, nor does it promise instant happiness. Instead, it offers a way of walking through life that transforms confusion into wisdom and emptiness into fullness. This path begins with right view, the understanding that life contains suffering, but also the possibility of liberation. When we see this clearly, we stop chasing illusions and begin seeking what truly matters. A young woman who has been striving endlessly for career success pauses to reflect. She realizes her exhaustion comes not only from work, but from believing her worth depends on her job title. With right view, she begins to see that her value is deeper, that success without peace is not success at all. This shift alone brings relief, like stepping off a treadmill. For right view comes right intention, the commitment to live with kindness, compassion, and clarity. Instead of asking, "How can I get more?" the question becomes, "How can I live in a way that reduces suffering for myself and for others?" A man nearing retirement, once anxious about losing status, begins to volunteer at a community garden. He discovers joy not in being admired, but in contributing. His life, once defined by achievements, now feels meaningful through service. Right speech, right action, and right livelihood guide how we live with others. Words can wound or heal. Actions can harm or uplift. Work can exploit or serve. When these aspects align with compassion, meaning arises naturally. A woman who once sold products she did not believe in changes her career path, choosing work that reflects her values. She earns less, but she sleeps peacefully. Her life feels aligned, and in that alignment, emptiness fades. Right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration deepen the practice. Instead of pouring effort into endless striving, we invest effort in cultivating what nourishes the heart. Mindfulness keeps us rooted in the present, where meaning is always available. Concentration steadies the mind, allowing us to see reality clearly. Together, these practices form a life that is not about chasing meaning, but about embodying it. Meaning is not found in a distant future. It is found in each breath, each choice, each act of compassion. Consider the mother folding laundry who once felt her life was only chores. Through mindfulness, she begins to see the care woven into each act. Each shirt folded is an expression of love for her family. The ordinary becomes sacred. Her life has not changed, but her awareness has transformed it. Or think of the student who once whispered, "What's the point?" He begins to practice gratitude each morning, naming 3 things he values. Over time, he realizes that meaning is not hidden in some grand destiny, but in simple presence, the laughter of a friend, the chance to learn, the beauty of the sky. His studies take on new depth, not as a race to prove himself, but as part of a larger unfolding. Buddhist wisdom also speaks of interbeing, the truth that we are connected to all life. When we live only for ourselves, emptiness grows, because the self alone cannot hold the vastness of existence. But when we live in awareness of connection, meaning expands. A man who once felt isolated begins to see that his actions ripple outward. Planting a tree is not just planting a tree. It is offering shade for future generations, food for birds, oxygen for the air. His life feels larger than his own concerns. He is part of something infinite. Meditation deepens this awareness. In stillness, the restless mind quiets, and beneath the noise, a natural peace emerges. In that peace, the boundaries of self soften, and one senses the vast web of life. This direct experience of connection brings a meaning no words can fully capture. It is not borrowed belief. It is living truth. Gratitude, compassion, mindfulness, and service. These are not decorations on life. They are life. They are the soil in which meaning grows. Each act of kindness, each mindful breath, each moment of letting go waters seeds of purpose. Over time, these seeds bloom into a life that feels whole, even amidst change. The emptiness that once felt frightening becomes space for growth. The ache that once felt like despair becomes the very sign that awakening is near. The Buddha once said, "Your work is to discover your work, and then, with all your heart, to give yourself to it." This work is not just a career. It is the calling of the heart. It may be teaching, healing, creating, serving, or simply living with awareness. Whatever form it takes, when it is rooted in compassion and wisdom, it brings meaning that cannot be taken away. Picture the man who once sat in his luxury car feeling empty. One evening, instead of sitting in silence, he drives to a shelter and helps serve meals. At first he feels awkward, but as he hands a plate to someone in need, he sees gratitude in their eyes. Something shifts. He realizes that meaning is not found in possessions, but in connection. He leaves with a lighter heart, not because his life has changed dramatically, but because he has glimpsed what truly matters. Or picture the woman who scrolled endlessly through social media, hungry for validation. She begins to limit her screen time and spend evenings walking in the park, greeting neighbors and writing letters to old friends. Slowly, her life feels richer. She still enjoys sharing photos, but her worth no longer depends on likes. Her meaning comes from real presence, not virtual applause. This is the quiet revolution of Buddhist practice. It transforms the ordinary into the extraordinary, the empty into the full. It teaches that meaning is not something we chase. It is something we create, breath by breath, act by act, moment by moment. And so, the search for meaning becomes not a desperate race, but a gentle return. A return to awareness, to compassion, to connection. A return to the truth that life itself, lived fully and mindfully, is already meaningful. The emptiness is no longer a curse. It is the open sky in which the heart can finally soar. The journey we have taken together began in the shadows of modern life, among the noise of alarms, screens, deadlines, and the heavy pulse of stress. We began with the endless hum of exhaustion, the loneliness hidden beneath glowing screens, the heavy chains of money and desire, the storms of broken relationships, the illusion of control, and the aching search for meaning. Each of these struggles is real. They are not abstract theories, but lived experiences carried quietly by millions of people every day. Stress in the body, loneliness in the heart, debt and desire pressing like invisible weights, words spoken in anger that linger for years, sleepless nights filled with worry, silent questions about why we are here at all. In each pain point, we recognized ourselves. And yet, through each chapter, we also discovered that suffering is not the end of the story. Each struggle, when illuminated with wisdom, becomes a doorway. Stress teaches us to return to the breath. Loneliness awakens compassion and deep listening. Desire and money remind us of impermanence and the freedom of contentment. Relationship storms open the path to forgiveness, patience, and loving kindness. Anxiety born of control shows us the beauty of equanimity and letting go. And the ache of emptiness calls us to discover meaning not in possessions or titles, but in awareness, connection, and compassion. The Buddha taught that all beings seek happiness, yet we often look in places where it cannot last. We chase the temporary, the fragile, the fleeting. We try to grasp clouds as though they were solid. But clouds always move, and so too does life. The deeper truth is that peace does not wait in the future. It is available now, hidden beneath the noise of craving and fear. It reveals itself in the simple rhythm of breathing, in the stillness of presence, and the warmth of compassion. The path we have explored is not about escaping the world, but about living in it with clarity. It is about transforming daily life into practice. Washing dishes becomes a meditation. Eating becomes gratitude. Walking becomes awareness. Listening becomes love. Each moment, no matter how ordinary, holds the seed of awakening. For those who feel overwhelmed by stress, remember, peace does not require hours of silence or perfect conditions. It requires only one breath, one conscious inhalation, one mindful exhalation. In that breath, the world slows and the mind begins to rest. For those who feel isolated and unseen, remember, Connection does not begin with hundreds of followers, but with one moment of presence. One phone call made with sincerity. One act of deep listening. One smile offered freely. These are the threads that weave belonging. For those trapped in the cycle of debt and desire, remember, contentment is not poverty. It is freedom. It is the strength to say, what I have is enough. It is gratitude for sunlight, for food, for love. It is generosity that opens the heart wider than any possession ever could. For those hurting in relationships, remember, storms are part of love, but storms can pass. Listen deeply, speak kindly, forgive when possible. Do not cling to the past or demand perfection. Instead, offer patience, offer presence. Love is not about possession, but about understanding. For those caught in anxiety, remember, you cannot stop the river, but you can learn to float. Control is an illusion, but acceptance is real. Equanimity is the strength to face change without collapsing, to bend like the tree in the wind, but never break. And for those who search for meaning, remember, the answer is not far away. It is here, in service, in awareness, in compassion. Meaning is created, not discovered in some distant treasure chest. It is created in how you walk, how you breathe, how you love. This is the invitation of Buddhist wisdom, to see life as it is, to stop fighting the impermanent, to stop chasing what cannot last, and to find peace in the present. It does not demand that you become someone else. It does not demand perfection. It asks only that you return, again and again, to the moment you are living. Return to your breath. Return to your body. Return to compassion. Slowly, the patterns of suffering loosen. Slowly, the chains fall away. Some may wonder, is this path too simple? Can breathing and mindfulness really change the weight of life? But the truth is that great changes are always built from small steps. A mountain is climbed one step at a time. A forest grows one seed at a time. And peace grows one breath at a time. In the silence of a single mindful breath, a person discovers freedom. In the stillness of listening without judgment, a person discovers love. In the act of giving, a person discovers wealth that no bank can hold. These discoveries are available to all, regardless of status, religion, or culture. They are not reserved for monks or sages. They are the birthright of every human being. You, too, have the capacity to live this way. You, too, can breathe with awareness, walk with presence, speak with kindness, and live with compassion. Each moment you do, you step out of the cycle of suffering and into the path of peace. The Buddha often reminded his students, you are your own refuge. No one can walk the path for you. Teachers can point the way, but you must take the steps. The good news is that the path is already beneath your feet. You are already walking it. Each moment of awareness, each act of kindness, each breath taken mindfully is the path itself. There is no need to wait for a perfect future. The doorway is open now. As we close this journey, imagine again the lives we have touched in these stories. The man lying awake at night with stress, now breathing calmly before sleep. The teenager feeling invisible at lunch, now offering a smile and forming a new friendship. The woman burdened by debt, now discovering gratitude for what she has. The couple drifting apart, now listening with patience and beginning to heal. The anxious parent, now releasing control and finding joy in simply being present. The successful professional who once felt empty, now discovering meaning in service and awareness. Each of these lives is not a fantasy. They are possibilities, real and near, available to anyone who chooses to practice. And so the invitation is gentle but clear. Begin where you are. Begin with one breath. Begin with one act of kindness. Begin with one moment of listening. Do not wait for life to settle. It will never settle. Do not wait for perfection. It will never arrive. Begin now, in the middle of the mess, in the middle of the storm, in the middle of your very ordinary day. That is where peace is found. That is where meaning blooms. And as you walk this path, you may notice something remarkable. The stress does not vanish, but it no longer controls you. The loneliness does not define you, because compassion connects you. Desire no longer chains you, because gratitude frees you. Relationships are still imperfect, but they are softened by patience and love. Anxiety still arises, but equanimity steadies you. The question of meaning no longer haunts you, because you are living it, here and now. The transformation is not loud. It is quiet, steady, like dawn breaking after a long night. The sky does not suddenly explode with light. It softens, it glows, it opens gradually. And then one day, you look back and realize the night has passed. The storm has lifted. You are living differently. You are living awake. And so, as we close this long journey, let us leave with an image. Imagine standing at the edge of the ocean at sunrise. The waves roll in, steady and endless, like the challenges of life. The sand is cool beneath your feet. The sky shifts from darkness to light. You breathe in the salt air, feel the rhythm of the waves, hear the call of seabirds. In that moment, there is no stress, no loneliness, no craving, no conflict, no fear, no emptiness. There is only life, vast and mysterious, and you standing within it, alive, aware, and free. This is the gift of the path, not to escape life, but to awaken within it. And as you turn away from the ocean, carrying this awareness back into your daily life, you carry the seed of transformation with you. Every breath can be mindful. Every word can be kind. Every act can be meaningful. This is how suffering becomes the doorway to peace. This is how emptiness becomes fullness. This is how ordinary life becomes extraordinary. Begin with one breath. The path is here. The path is now, and you are already walking it.